So, you've been frantically searching the web for tips and tricks on how you can get wham this summer, so you can finally accomplish your self-fulfilling prophecy and get 100 girls on the beach. In pursuit of this, you've stumbled across Dr. Mike Israetel's volume landmarks. You see phrases like MEV and MRV being chucked around, and you're sat there wondering what it all means. Let's start off by asking what volume landmarks actually are. Simply put, they're a recommended set of volume ranges for phases of training. Let's start with maintenance volume, normally referred to as MV. This basically means the amount of volume you need to maintain your gains. For example, the amount of volume believed to maintain your quads is believed to be around 6 sets a week, working sets that is. But this number can change depending on how long you've been training for, are you in a calorie deficit, and is your training suboptimal? But why is maintenance volume important? No one just wants to maintain the muscle, we want to build some. Well, these volume recommendations specifically come in very handy when going through a deload block, but also if you're looking to run a specialization block where you're putting emphasis on, say, your arms, for example, you can bring stuff like your chest and your back down to maintenance volume. Doing this just allows you to really put emphasis on your arms, drive up the volume, and obviously volume's been shown to be a key driver of hypertrophy. Okay, so moving on to minimum effective volume, also known as MEV. This is the least amount of volume you need to do to build muscle. This is normally the number of sets that you'd start your training block at. Let's take the triceps for example. Week 1 volume would normally be around 6 to 8 working sets a week. Then as you progress through your training block, the volume increases throughout the weeks. A little note on this, MEV does change throughout your lifting career, normally increasing as you become more advanced. But Big Jack, why do we want to do the minimum amount of volume? Why not go straight to doing the maximum amount of volume that we can handle? Because volume's a key driver of hypertrophy, right? While that is partly correct, higher volume training does normally equal the greatest gains, to a certain extent anyway. But if you jump straight to your maximum recoverable volume, which we'll touch on later, you'll soon run into recovery issues, and plus you'll be leaving easy gains on the table. Let me explain. To explain this, in dedication to Dr. Mike Israetel, as he was the one who familiarised these volume landmarks, I'm going to use an analogy. So let's think of it like this. There's a table with 4 apples in size of smallest to biggest. Training at the highest volume possible is the equivalent to going up to the table and just taking that big apple and eating that. But training smartly by starting at lower volumes and increasing throughout your mesocycle throughout the weeks till you get closer to your deload, this would be the equivalent of going up to the table, eating a small apple week 1, then the second one on week 2, then the third on week 3, and then the fourth on week 4. And then collectively, you've built more muscle over that period than just going for the big apple and just eating that one because that's the most gains, that's the most volume. Now we move on to maximum adaptive volume, also known as MAV. This is the volume ranges where you make the best gains. It's a broader range than the other volume landmarks, and this is because it can change greatly from week to week, so throughout the mesocycle. Why is this? Why does it change so much? Every time you train a body part with a certain amount of sets, weight, and volume, muscle growth occurs. Simply put, if you overload the system, you get results. But systems adapt. What was overloading last session isn't this session and won't be for the next session. In order to keep overloading, you must use a combination of heavier weights and higher volumes from week to week in your training block. An example of this, say we're doing leg press for our quads. In this training block, we're going to concentrate on the 8 to 15 rep range. Let's say week 1, we get 3 sets at 100 kilograms. Week 2, it's 3 sets with 105 kilograms. Week 2, it's 4 sets with 105 kilograms. So the first week to the second week, the progression was we added 5 kg. Then the second week to the third week, the progression was we added a set. Last but not least of the volume landmarks is maximum recoverable volume, also known as MRV. If you remember, I briefly mentioned this earlier when going over the minimum effective volume. MRV is when the total amount of volume in your program is so high that it starts to impede on your recovery and your progress halts in the gym. While overreaching can sometimes be beneficial in your training program, spending too much time at super high volumes can be detrimental to your progression. Ever wonder why you're in the gym, the bench press is going up week on week, and then suddenly maybe the 6th or 7th week your progress halts and you're like, oh, I'm going to keep grinding this out, I'm going to keep doing it, I'll keep progressing, and then eventually you start to actually digress and you're getting weaker and you're like, why am I getting weaker? The likelihood is you've been overtraining, so it would be good advice to take a deload and then come back in nice and fresh after a week off. Okay, so now we've briefly gone over the volume landmarks, how should we actually practically apply this to our training program? First, by using these recommendations as guidelines, we can start to find our own MEV, MRV, MAV, and any other V that I might have missed. The reason for this is everyone's is going to be slightly different depending on genetics, lifestyle, and training experience. When it comes to planning out your mesocycle or training block, begin your training at your MEV and then progress through your MAV throughout the weeks until you reach your own MRV. This should result in the most benefits. Then once the training block's done, probably ranging from 4 to 8 weeks, drop your volume down to MV, so maintenance volume, and deload for a week. And after that's done, you start your progression again. If we take chest as a quick example of this, so week 1, 10 sets, week 2, 12 sets, week 3, 14 sets, then all the way up to week 5 with 18 sets, and then week 6 would be a deload back down to the maintenance volume, which would be 8 sets a week. If you're interested in this and want to dive deeper, I'll leave a link in the description to Renaissance Periodization's articles on the volume landmarks. They are really insightful and I definitely recommend reading them. They go over in a lot more detail each body part and why they recommend the volume that they do. So you may be wondering what the actual volume landmarks for each muscle group are. Well, because I'm nice, I designed an easy to read table that you can screenshot if you like, and it's just simply put so you can see kind of chest, for example, go along to the recommendations and see kind of the rough ballpark figures. So there it is. Take this information and be sure to apply it to your own training. Quick one as well, if you're really interested in learning more about this, I'd recommend checking out the Revive Stronger podcast. They put out great information and put it in an easy to understand format. I hope you found this video useful. Thank you for watching. Peace.